Okay, so let's unpack this pretty tense exchange we've got sourced from CBC's Canada tonight.
Right. It's got Mark Carney, former Bank of Canada and Bank of England governor,
Very familiar name, Matt.
and the American journalist Laura Mitchell. The setting is this CBC studio, and you can kind of feel the anticipation.
Absolutely. The topic is Canada's economic future, its
hmm
relationship with the U.S. Big stuff.
And you have to remember the context for the Canadian audience watching. All those headlines swirling around, Trump, tariffs, the 51st state idea, inflation hitting home.
Yeah, real anxiety. So they're looking to Carney, for some kind of reassurance, maybe. He starts off quite composed, very calm.
That's the initial vibe, yeah. A measured
Yes.
discussion. But then Laura Mitchell walks in.
And the source calls her a New York firebrand. That reputation kind of precedes her, doesn't it?
It really does. And immediately you sense the shift. It's not just a polite chat anymore. It feels like a showdown is brewing, something more fundamental.
So our mission here, for you listening, is to really get into this confrontation. We want to unpack the arguments, understand the underlying tensions.
And figure out what this whole exchange really means for Canada, for that Canada-U.S. relationship. It's more than just headlines.
Mitchell definitely doesn't waste any time. She jumps right in, questioning if Canada can actually withstand potential new tariffs. Lumber, steel, dairy.
The big ones, the sensitive sectors.
Exactly. But then she drops that really provocative question, doesn't she? About considering the 51st state idea,
Yeah.
asking if that's basically surrender.
Oof. Yeah, that's designed to hit a nerve. Sovereignty and national identity. It's
Yeah.
all wrapped up in that.
You can just imagine the reaction in the studio. A bit of shock, maybe, nervous laughter.
Probably contrasted with, some older folks maybe stiffening up a bit. The word surrender carries a lot of weight.
And Carney's first response is, well, it's interesting. He stays calm. He references a speech he gave back in 2023 at the G7.
Right. The source implies he was talking about Canada's ability to weather storms, like the financial crisis, on its own terms, that kind of inherent strength.
It's a subtle way of saying, we've handled things before. We don't just bend to pressure.
And then he actually flips it back on her, doesn't he? Asks Mitchell if she'd considered that a nation can thrive without just giving in to foreign pressure.
Kind of challenging her premise.
Exactly. But Mitchell, she's quick. She sort of brushes off the history bit, calls it a lovely history lesson, apparently.
It's sarcastic, maybe.
Sounds like it. And she immediately brings it back to the present. Inflation, pensions being stretched, the real impact of tariffs on workers right now.
She's asking, is this stability Carney talks about just stagnation? Is it hiding problems?
It's a direct appeal to those everyday worries people have.
But Carney counters. He defines stability differently, not as stagnation, but as the anchor. What holds a country steady when things get rough elsewhere?
And he connects that to Canada's past resilience, and apparently that resonates. The source mentions spontaneous applause, even points out an older guy in a flannel shirt clapping.
Yeah, that detail paints a picture. It suggests that message of sticking it out, of resilience, really hit home for some people there.
This feels like a turning point in the exchange.
It does. The source says Carney rises to speak, not aggressively, but with real conviction. And he delivers that line, Canada will never be a footnote in someone else's story.
Wow, that's a strong statement.
Very strong. He's pushing back hard against any idea of annexation, framing Canada as proud, tested, choosing its own way.
And the audience reaction described is, well, it's huge. Enthusiastic applause, people shouting Canada. It's like a surge of national pride.
More than just agreeing with policy, it's emotional, right? An affirmation of identity.
Definitely. And Mitchell tries to jump back in.
Yeah, she tries to bring it back to the practical stuff, saying tariffs don't care about poetry, that Canada will pay for this idealism.
But her words just get lost in the noise, apparently. The crowd's reaction is too strong.
And then Carney delivers another zinger, quietly but firmly. The price of independence is always worth paying.
That's powerful, simple, but it cuts deep. It speaks to that core value of self-determination.
And you see the impact on Mitchell, that confident smirk the source mentioned. It starts to fade.
Like the mood in the room, that wave of national feeling actually got to her. Her confidence cracked a little.
The momentum is clearly shifted.
So the host, David Fraser, seeing how intense things have gotten, smoothly calls for a commercial break. Smart move.
Gives everyone a second to breathe. But the energy doesn't just dissipate during the break, right?
Not at all. The audience is buzzing, whispers, excitement, patriotism. The source catches little snippets.
Like that older guy saying Mark's got her number.
And a woman adding, she doesn't know Canada like we do. It really captures that feeling of us versus them almost, defending their identity.
And the backstage contrast is telling, too. Mitchell seems agitated, rifling through notes.
While Carney is composed, chatting with Fraser, sipping water, it suggests maybe he feels more grounded in the situation.
The audience, especially the older ones, they're primed, ready for round two.
So they come back from the break, and Mitchell goes for a different angle, more personal.
Right, she brings up this story of a factory worker in Sudbury, laid off supposedly because of tariffs. And she asks Carney, basically, what do your numbers say to him?
It's a classic tactic. Put a human face on the policy debate. Make it relatable, emotional.
And it seems to land initially. The audience goes quiet, thoughtful, people nodding, feeling the weight of that personal story.
But Carney's response is pretty clever. He acknowledges the hardship, says he's heard similar stories, shows empathy. But then he pivots. He brings up something Mitchell herself wrote back in 2020, something apparently positive about Canada's economic framework.
Oh, that's a sharp turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the source says the audience laughed. They saw it as, catching her out, undermining her current criticism by pointing out a past different view.
It suggests maybe her current stance isn't just about pure economics. Mitchell tries to recover, though.
She does. She accuses Carney of being out of touch, high inflation, people struggling. The standard counterargument against someone in his position.
But Carney pushes back firmly on that.
Right. He talks about his whole career being focused on making the economy work for everyone, not just the elites. He gestures to the audience, highlighting ordinary Canadians.
And he brings it back to trust, saying Canada's strength isn't about quick fixes or political stunts, but trust in institutions, trust in each other.
And that message seems to connect again. The source notes an elderly couple reacting emotionally, more applause building. It's about stability, shared values.
Then comes Carney's final big statement. The source calls it a righteous defiance.
That's quite a phrase. Captures the mood.
He declares Canada's story is about defiance, standing up to those who underestimate it.
And he brings in the history again, right? Standing against empires, getting through depressions, wars, always maintaining independence.
Yeah, it's a reminder of that historical resilience. He frames Canada not just as a country, but as a promise to its citizens about enduring, not just surviving.
And the reaction, even bigger than before, louder applause, more resonant. That detail about the elderly veteran wiping away a tear.
Really powerful imagery. The whole audience gets to its feet.
And Mitchell makes one last attempt.
Yeah, final jab. Calls Carney a dreamer, not a doer, demands action, not promises.
But it's too late. Her words are just swallowed by the overwhelming support for Carney in that room. She can't break through.
You get the sense she knows it too. The source describes her physically sinking back in her chair, a visual retreat.
Not just losing the argument, but losing the room completely.
David Fraser, the host, wraps it up perfectly. What a night for Canada. Cue more cheers.
And Carney afterward, shaking hands. The source describes it as quiet dignity, receiving thanks, sharing that sense of pride with the audience.
A real connection happened there.
Meanwhile, Mitchell slips away quietly, her usual swagger gone. Mentioned she'll write a column, but it feels subdued.
And Carney's final words to the crowd, that Canada will always stand strong no matter the challenge, described as having the quality of winter storms and granite cliffs.
Very evocative, leaving a lasting image of strength and resilience.
Followed by that final, massive standing ovation. The whole room united in that feeling.
So what happened next? The source says this whole Carney versus Mitchell thing just exploded online.
Went viral, basically. Trending everywhere, people making memes, Carney as a lighthouse, apparently.
That's kind of funny, but it shows how it captured the imagination. Reactions poured in, even from the U.S.
And those online comments really highlight the core feeling. That quote, Mark Carney just reminded the world why we're Canada, not just somebody's 51st state. That sums it up, doesn't it?
It really does. It shows this wasn't just another political debate. It tapped into something much deeper.
Feelings about Canadian identity, independence, that sense of resilience. It resonated across the board, seniors, veterans, everyone.
It struck a real chord.
So for you listening, it's worth thinking about what this exchange really shows. What does it tell us about the current state of Canada's relationship with the U.S.?
And maybe about the enduring strength of national identity, especially when it feels pressured from the outside.
What does being proud to call yourself Canadian actually mean in moments like these? It's something to chew on.
Definitely. And like the source hints, this story probably isn't over. There might be follow-ups, more reactions down the line.
It feels like a moment, but also part of a continuing conversation about Canada's place in the world.